The wind howled through the jagged peaks of the Silver Fang Mountains, carrying the scent of pine and distant rain. Ilara clutched her tattered cloak tighter around her shoulders, her bare feet aching against the rocky path. Behind her, two small figures stumbled along, their tiny hands gripping the hem of her dress. Twins, barely 4 years old, with wide eyes that mirrored her own, golden flecked with the wild spark of their Omega heritage. Lear and Mira, her lost cubs, or so the pack had called them when they were born under a blood moon, whispering of curses and ill omens. She had been exiled from the Whispering Woods pack 3 moons ago, cast out like refuse after the Alpha's mate accused her of bewitching the Luna's son. Lies, all of it. Ilara had only ever wanted a quiet life on the fringes, tending herbs and avoiding the heated gazes of the betas who prowled the borders. But Omegas like her were rare, their scents a siren's call in a world ruled by Alphas, and now, with the twins in tow, she was a fugitive, scraping by on berries and stolen glances at passing traders. The path dipped into a misty valley, where ancient oaks twisted like guardians of forgotten secrets. Ilara's heart pounded as the tree line gave way to a sprawling encampment. Fires dotted the landscape, their flames leaping high against the encroaching dusk. Tents of hide and fur stretched across the clearing, and the air thrummed with low growls and the rhythmic thud of paws on earth. This was no ordinary pack. This was the heart of the Alpha King's domain, the Ironclaw realm. Legends spoke of King Thorn, a beast of a man who united the fractured clans with an iron fist and a gaze that could shatter stone. To seek refuge here was to beg for mercy from the merciless. Ilara hesitated at the edge of the woods, her breath coming in shallow bursts. The twins whimpered, pressing closer to her legs. "Mama, cold," Mira murmured, her small fingers twisting in Ilara's skirt. Lear nodded solemnly, his mop of dark curls falling into his eyes. They were exhausted, their little bodies marked by the journey's toll, scratches from brambles, hunger gnawing at their bellies. She couldn't turn back. The woods behind them crawled with rogue shifters, drawn by rumors of an Omega on the run with valuable cubs. No, forward was their only hope. Swallowing her fear, Ilara stepped into the open, the crunch of leaves underfoot announcing her arrival like a death knell. Heads turned immediately. A sentry, broad-shouldered with scars crisscrossing his arms, straightened from his post by a roaring fire. His name was Garrick, she would learn later, a loyal beta with a perpetual scowl and eyes that missed nothing. "Halt, wanderer!" he barked, his voice rough as gravel. "State your business or be torn apart." Ilara raised her hands, palms open in submission, the universal sign of an Omega seeking peace. "Please," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "We come from the Whispering Woods, exiled. I seek audience with the Alpha King, for my cub's sake." Garrick's nostrils flared, catching her scent, sweet jasmine laced with desperation and the faint milk of motherhood. His scowl deepened, but there was a flicker of something else, perhaps pity. Around him, others gathered. A wiry scout named Lena, her hair braided with feathers, who eyed the twins with curiosity, and old Harlan, the pack's storyteller, leaning on his cane with a knowing grin that revealed gaps in his teeth. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through wheat. "An Omega," Lena murmured, "with young ones. Bold or foolish?" Garrick waved a hand, signaling 2 guards to flank her. "The king decides your fate. Move." They herded her through the encampment, past longhouses, where the scent of roasting venison made the twins' stomachs growl audibly. Eyes followed them, alphas with muscled frames and betas with wary stares. Ilara kept her head high, though inside doubt clawed at her. What if Thorn turned them away? Or worse, claimed the cubs as his own, as some alphas did with unmarked young? The central pavilion loomed ahead, a massive structure of timber and hides adorned with the Iron Claw banner, a snarling wolf's head against a crimson field. Guards parted as Garrick approached, and Ilara was ushered inside. The air was thick with the aroma of leather and smoke, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on the walls. At the far end, upon a throne carved from oak and bone, sat King Thorn. He was every bit the legend, towering, with shoulders like forged steel and hair as black as a raven's wing, tied back in a warrior's knot. His eyes, a piercing silver, locked onto her the moment she entered. The room fell silent, the only sound the crackle of the central fire pit. Thorn's presence was a force, alpha pheromones rolling off him in waves that made Ilara's knees weaken. She forced herself to meet his gaze, clutching the twins closer. "Who dares enter my hall unbidden?" Thorn's voice was deep, resonant, carrying the weight of command. He leaned forward, his throne creaking under his bulk. Garrick stepped aside, bowing his head. "An exiled Omega, my king," Garrick replied. "From the Whispering Woods, she brings cubs." Thorn's silver eyes narrowed, sweeping over Ilara and the children. Lear hid behind her leg, peeking out shyly, while Mira stared back with innocent defiance. The king's expression was unreadable, a mask of stone, but beneath it, Ilara sensed a stirring, a predator assessing prey. "Exiled, you say? For what crime?" Ilara's throat tightened. "False accusations, my lord, the Luna's jealousy. I've done nothing but protect my own." She hesitated, then added, "We have nowhere else. Please, grant us sanctuary." A murmur rose from the assembled pack members. Advisors and warriors clustered in the shadows. Thorn silenced them with a raised hand. He rose slowly, his boots thudding against the fur-strewn floor as he descended the dais. Up close, he was even more imposing, his scent earthy and commanding, wrapping around her like chains. He stopped mere feet away, tilting his head to inhale deeply. "Your scent," he said softly, almost to himself. "Pure Omega, untouched by another alpha's mark." His gaze flicked to the twins. "And these cubs, lost, you call them?" Ilara nodded, her pulse racing. "Born to me alone. No father claims them." Thorn's lips curved into a faint, dangerous smile. He reached out, not to touch her, but to brush a finger along Mira's cheek. The girl didn't flinch, her small hand reaching up to grasp his. A collective intake of breath filled the hall. "Sanctuary," Thorn echoed, his voice laced with something darker than mercy. "You seek it here, in my realm. But know this, Omega, nothing comes without a price." Ilara's heart hammered as he straightened, his eyes boring into hers. "You and your cubs will stay, but you belong to the Iron Claw now, to all of us." The words hung in the air like a vow or a threat. Whispers erupted anew, and Ilara felt the ground shift beneath her. Sanctuary, or a cage gilded in fur and fire? As Thorn turned back to his throne, signaling the end of the audience, she realized the true exile had only just begun. The pack closed in around them, eyes gleaming with hunger, and in that moment, Ilara knew her fight for freedom was far from over. The flickering torchlight in the great hall seemed to dim as King Thorn's words echoed off the timber walls, settling over Ilara like a heavy pelt. She stood frozen, the twins clinging to her sides, their small bodies trembling not from the chill, but from the weight of unseen eyes. The assembled pack, warriors with calloused hands and advisors draped in furs, shifted restlessly, their murmurs a low rumble like thunder on the horizon. Garrick, the scarred sentry, positioned himself at her flank, his presence a reluctant shield, while Lena the scout lingered nearby, her feather-braided hair catching the fire's glow as she watched with keen interest. Thorn ascended the dais once more, his broad back to them as he resumed his throne. "See to their needs," he commanded without turning, his voice brooking no argument. But mark my words, the Omega and her cubs are under Ironclaw protection. Any who challenge that will answer to me." The finality in his tone sent a ripple through the crowd, silencing the whispers. Yet Ilara caught the undercurrent, the hungry glances, the subtle flecks of muscles among the betas, as if Thorn's decree had ignited a shared claim rather than quelled it. Garrick grunted, gesturing for her to follow. "This way, outsider, no dawdling." He led them out of the pavilion into the cooling night, the encampment alive with the crackle of fires and the distant howl of sentries on patrol. The air carried the rich scent of smoked meat and damp earth, mingling with the sharper tang of wolf musk that permeated everything. Ilara's bare feet padded softly over the trampled grass, each step a reminder of her vulnerability. Lear tugged at her hand, his golden eyes wide. "Mama, the big man. He scary?" Mira, ever the bolder one, piped up, "But he touched me nice, like a story bear." Ilara forced a smile, kneeling to pull them close. "He's the king, little ones. Kings are strong, but we'll be careful. Remember, we stick together." Her voice was a whisper, laced with the exhaustion of the road, but beneath it burned a fierce resolve. Sanctuary or not, she wouldn't let this pack swallow them whole. As Garrick halted before a modest tent on the encampment's edge, a structure of weathered hides and sturdy poles, she straightened, scanning the surroundings. The area was quieter here, away from the central fires, but not isolated. Shadows moved in the periphery, pack members going about evening rituals. "This'll be yours for now," Garrick said gruffly, pulling back the flap. Inside, the space was sparse but functional. A pile of fresh furs for bedding, a small brazier with embers glowing, and a wooden crate stocked with bread, dried fish, and a jug of water. Harlan, the old storyteller, shuffled in behind them, his cane tapping rhythmically. His grin was crooked, eyes twinkling with mischief despite the lines etched deep into his weathered face. "Not the palace, eh? But better than brambles and berries, I'd wager. Name's Harlan. Been spinning tales for this lot since Thorn was a pup gnawing at bones." Ilara nodded gratefully, guiding the twins inside. "Thank you. I'm Ilara. These are Lear and Mira." The children eyed Harlan warily as he settled on a stool, pulling a small carved wolf from his pocket, a toy, rough-hewn but charming. Mira's curiosity won out. She toddled over, accepting it with a shy giggle. Lear hung back, clutching Ilara's leg. Garrick lingered at the entrance, arms crossed. "Food's basic. Tomorrow, you'll meet the healers for a proper look at those scratches, and keep to the edges, no wandering without an escort. Thorn's word holds, but packs have teeth." His tone softened fractionally as he glanced at the twins. "They'll need milk soon. There's a wet nurse, Silver, if yours has run dry." He departed with a nod, leaving Ilara to exhale shakily. As the night deepened, Ilara coaxed the twins to eat, their tiny mouths devouring the bread with ravenous hunger. Harlan watched, his stories flowing like a gentle stream, tales of ancient alphas who tamed the mountains, of omegas whose scents wove destinies. But Ilara's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of this new world. The Ironclaw weren't just a pack. They were a kingdom forged in blood and loyalty, with Thorn at its ruthless core. His declaration, "You belong to all of us," gnawed at her. In the Whispering Woods, Omegas were cherished but controlled, their heats a commodity for alliances. Here, it felt like something wilder, a collective hunger that could bind or break her. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Lena slipped inside, carrying a bundle of clean linens and a cloak of soft wool. "From the stores," she said, her voice light but eyes sharp. "I'm Lena, scout. Saw you come in, brave, dragging those wee ones over the passes. Most wouldn't make it." She knelt to Mira's level, offering a braided cord with a tiny feather. "For luck. Keeps the shadows away." The girl beamed, tying it around her wrist, while Lear finally ventured forward, accepting a similar token with a mumbled thanks. Ilara accepted the cloak, wrapping it around her shoulders. It smelled faintly of pine and freedom, a small comfort. "Why help? You don't know us." Lena shrugged, rising. "Thorn's rule is iron, but not all here are stone. Packs need omegas, brings balance. And those cubs, unmarked, pure, rare gift." Her gaze lingered on Ilara's neck, where no mate's bite marred the skin. "Rest. Dawn patrol's early. If you need anything, find me by the Eastern Watch." She vanished into the night as swiftly as she'd come. Harlan chuckled, stoking the brazier. "Good lass, Lena, loyal to the bone. But mind the others, betas like Garrick are steady, but the younger alphas, they test boundaries." He paused, his grin fading. "Thorn's different. Lost his mate years back to rogues, made him harder. But your scent, it'll stir things. Be wary." Ilara's pulse quickened. She tucked the twins into the furs, their eyelids drooping as sleep claimed them. Lying beside them, she stared at the tent's ceiling, the wind whispering secrets through the flaps. The pack's energy pulsed around her, a living beast, curious and possessive. In the distance, a lone howl rose, answered by others, a chorus that both warned and welcomed. Sanctuary felt like a fragile thread, and as exhaustion pulled her under, Ilara dreamed of golden eyes in the dark, watching, waiting. But dawn brought no respite. A commotion stirred outside, shouts, the clash of steel. Ilara jolted awake, the twins stirring in fright. Garrick burst in, face grim. "Rogues at the border, Thorns calling arms, stay put." Yet, as he left, Ilara caught a scent on the wind, familiar from her past. The whispering woods, had they come for her? Heart-pounding, she clutched the cubs close, the tent's shadows suddenly alive with threat. The Iron Claw's protection might save them, but at what cost to her soul? The first rays of dawn pierced the tent flaps like accusatory fingers, casting long shadows that danced across the furs where Ilara huddled with Lear and Mira. The twins' whimpers cut through the air, their small bodies pressed against her as the distant clash of steel grew louder, punctuated by guttural snarls and the thunder of paws pounding earth. Ilara's heart raced, her omega instinct screaming to flee, to shield her cubs from the storm brewing outside. But where? The Iron Claw encampment, with its web of loyalties and hidden hungers, felt more like a trap than a haven now. That scent on the wind, musky pine and bitter resentment, clung to her nostrils, a ghost from the whispering woods. Had the Luna's spies tracked her here? Or worse, the Alpha himself come to reclaim what he deemed his? She rose swiftly, wrapping the wool cloak Lena had given her around the twins, their golden eyes wide with confusion. "Shh, my loves," she murmured, forcing calm into her voice. "We're safe. Mama's here." But the lie tasted bitter. The tent flap whipped open again, and Harlan hobbled in, his cane forgotten in the urgency, face flushed beneath his grey beard. "Up, lass! Rogues from the eastern ridges, scouts say a dozen strong, smelling of old grudges. Thorns rallying the line. But if they breach—" He trailed off, eyes flicking to the children. "Hide deep. I'll fetch Garrick." Before Ilara could respond, the old storyteller vanished into the fray, leaving her alone with the rising chaos. Shouts echoed through the camp. "To the king! Flank the bastards!" The ground trembled under the surge of bodies, alphas shifting mid-stride into massive wolves with fur like midnight and eyes burning amber. Ilara scooped up Mira, who buried her face in her neck, while Lear clung to her free hand, his tiny fingers digging in like claws. She peered through a slit in the tent, the encampment transforming into a battlefield. Fires from the night before smouldered, casting acrid smoke that mingled with the metallic tang of blood already spilled. In the distance, King Thorn stood atop a rocky outcrop, his form a silhouette of raw power. He hadn't shifted yet. His command was his weapon, voice booming like thunder. "Hold the line! No rogue takes Ironclaw ground!" Beside him, Garrick barked orders to a cluster of betas, his scarred arms directing archers to the high ground. Lena darted through the melee, her lithe frame weaving like a shadow, bow drawn and arrow nocked. But Ilara's gaze snagged on the intruders breaching the tree line. Ragged figures, some in wolf form, others half-shifted, their pelts matted and eyes wild with desperation. Leading them was a familiar beta from her old pack. Kyle, broad and brutish, with a jagged scar across his muzzle from a long-ago skirmish. He was the Luna's enforcer, the one who dragged her before the council during her exile. His howl cut through the din, a challenge laced with possession. "The Omega's ours. Hand her over, Thorn, or we'll burn your precious realm." Ilara's blood ran cold. They had come for her, and the cubs, the lost ones, whispered to carry a curse that could weaken packs or strengthen them, depending on the tale. She backed away from the flap, mind whirling. Stay hidden. Fight. Her Omega strength was no match for warriors, but the bond with her young fueled a fire she couldn't ignore. A sudden crash nearby jolted her. Two rogues had slipped the line, tumbling into the outer tents, their snarls ripping through hide walls. One, a lean grey wolf with foam at its jaws, lunged toward her shelter, yellow eyes locking on the flap. Panic surged, but Ilara moved on instinct. She shoved the twins behind the crate, grabbing a loose tent pole as a makeshift staff. "Stay down," she hissed, heart pounding. The wolf barreled in, shifting mid-leap to a hulking man with elongated fangs and claws extended. "There you are, witch," he growled, voice distorted by the change. "The Luna wants her prizes back." He swiped at her, but Ilara dodged, the pole cracking against his shoulder with surprising force, adrenaline lending her Omega Grace a deadly edge. The rogue staggered, roaring in pain, but his companion slunk in behind, a wiry female with tangled hair and a feral grin. "Cubs first," she sneered, reaching for Lear's hiding spot. "No!" Ilara swung wildly, the pole splintering on impact, but it bought her a second. Mira's cry pierced the air, drawing the female's attention. In that moment, a blur of motion exploded through the flap. Garrick, in partial shift, his jaws clamping around the female's arm. She yelped, twisting free, but he barreled into her, pinning her down with brute force. "Get the young out," he bellowed at Ilara, blood flecking his muzzle. The first rogue recovered, lunging at Garrick's flank, but Ilara didn't hesitate. She grabbed a glowing brand from the brazier, thrusting it into his face. The smell of singed fur filled the tent as he howled, recoiling in agony. Chaos reigned outside, the battle spilling closer. Thorn's roar shook the earth. He had shifted now, a colossal black wolf tearing through the rogue line, his silver eyes flashing like lightning. Kyle met him head-on, their forms colliding in a whirlwind of fangs and fury, but Thorn's dominance was absolute, driving the beta back with savage precision. Lena's arrows whistled, felling two more intruders, while Harlan, surprisingly agile, herded frightened pack young to safety with his tails turned to urgent commands. Ilara scooped up the twins, dashing out into the smoke-choked air, Garrick covering their retreat. "To the pavilion!" he grunted, shoving her toward the central structure. But as they ran, a rogue arrow whizzed past, grazing Ilara's arm. A shallow cut, but the sting ignited fresh fear. Lear tripped, his small cry lost in the din, and Ilara hauled him up, her breath ragged. The scent of the Whispering Woods pack grew stronger, mingling with Ironclaw blood, a toxic brew that promised no easy end. They burst into the pavilion's shadow, where warriors formed a living wall. Thorn, reverting to man-form mid-stride, bloodied but unbowed, locked eyes with her across the fray. His chest heaved, silver gaze piercing the distance, a promise or a possession renewed. "Protect the Omega!" he thundered, and the pack surged forward. Kyle's forces faltered, retreating into the mist-shrouded trees, but not before he locked eyes with Ilara. his snarl a vow of return. As the battle's echoes faded, Ilara sank to her knees, twins sobbing in her arms. Garrick knelt beside her, checking her wound with rough gentleness. "You fought like a she-wolf," he muttered, respect flickering in his scowl. Lena appeared, breathless, pressing a cloth to staunch the blood. "They're gone for now. But that scent, your old pack means business." Thorn approached, his presence parting the crowd like a blade. He towered over her, wiping rogue blood from his hands, his expression a storm of calculation and something fiercer. Protectiveness, perhaps, twisted with claim. "You draw trouble, Omega," he said, voice low and gravelly. "But Iron Claw stands. Your cubs, they're safe because of us." His hand hovered near her shoulder, not touching, but the heat of it sent shivers through her. Ilara met his gaze, defiance sparking amid the exhaustion. "And what price now, King? My freedom for your shield?" He didn't answer, but the weight of his silence bound them tighter. The pack closed ranks around her, a circle of fur and fire, and as medics tended the wounded, Ilara realized the rogue's raid had forged an unbreakable link. Sanctuary came with chains, and the true battle for her heart, her cub's future, had only ignited. In the distance, the mountains whispered warnings, but the Iron Claw howl rose triumphant, pulling her deeper into their world. The sun climbed higher over the Silverfang Mountains, its pale light filtering through the haze of smoke that still lingered from the dawn's skirmish. Ilara sat on a weathered log outside the pavilion, her arm bandaged tightly by the pack's healer, a stern woman named Mira, no relation to her daughter, but the coincidence brought a fleeting warmth to Ilara's chest. The healer, with her silver-streaked hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun and hands calloused from years of mending wounds, had clucked her tongue at the graze. "Flesh wound, but watch for fever. Rogues carry filth in their bites." Ilara nodded absently, her gaze fixed on Lear and Mira, who played tentatively under Harlan's watchful eye a few paces away. The old storyteller had fashioned a game from sticks and stones, his gravelly voice weaving a tale of brave cubs outwitting forest spirits. But even his magic couldn't erase the shadows of fear from the twins' faces. The encampment buzzed with the aftermath of battle. Warriors sharpening blades by the fires, betas hauling away the bodies of fallen rogues to be burned at the ridge's edge, their pelts offered to the winds as a warning to any who dared return. Garrick moved among them like a steadfast oak, directing the cleanup with barked orders, his scarred face smeared with dried blood, but his eyes alert for threats. Lena perched on a nearby crate, restringing her bow with precise fingers, her feather braids swaying as she stole glances at Ilara. "You held your own in there," she said, breaking the silence. "Not many Omegas swing a pole like that. Reminds me of the old queens, fierce when cornered." Ilara managed a weak smile, rubbing her temples where a headache throbbed. "Had to, for them." She watched Mira stack stones into a wobbly tower, Lear knocking them down with a giggle that sounded forced, like an echo of their old innocence. The raid had shaken them to the core. Lear had barely spoken since, his small frame curled protectively around his sister during the chaos. The scent of the whispering woods still haunted Ilara, Kyle's brutish presence, the Luna's venomous reach extending like thorns. Why now? The cubs were the key, she knew. Rumors of their cursed birth had always swirled, Omegas whispering that they carried the blood of ancient seers, able to bind packs or unravel them. Exiled or not, her old pack wouldn't let such power slip away. A shadow fell over her, broad and commanding. Thorn. He approached without fanfare, his boots crunching the gravel, the metallic scent of battle still clinging to his fur-trimmed tunic. Up close, in the daylight, his silver eyes held less of the throne-room menace and more of a weary intensity. Lines of command etched deep around his mouth. He carried a water skin and a small pouch, which he tossed to her feet. "Drink and eat. The healer's herbs will steady you." His voice was gruff, but there was an undercurrent of concern that caught her off guard, like a crack in unyielding stone. Ilara took the water skin, her fingers brushing his accidentally. A spark jumped between them, alpha to omega, instinctual and electric, making her pull back sharply. "Thank you, my lord, but I can manage." The twins looked up, curiosity flickering in their golden eyes. Mira tilted her head, bold as ever. "You fought the bad wolves, like a big hero?" Thorn's lips twitched, the ghost of a smile softening his features. He crouched to her level, his massive frame folding with surprising gentleness. "Aye, little one. But heroes need packs to win." He ruffled her curls lightly, then glanced at Lear, who shrank back but didn't hide. Thorn didn't press, rising instead to face Ilara. "The rogues fled, but Kale's no fool. He'll lick his wounds and circle back. Your old pack, they claim the cubs as theirs." Ilara's throat tightened, the weight of truth pressing down. They never accepted them, called them lost, omens. But yes, they'd drag us back to chains. She met his gaze, searching for the predator she'd first seen, but found something else. Calculation, laced with a possessive fire that made her pulse quicken. "Why protect us? Your words last night belong to all of us. What does that mean in a fight like this?" Thorn's jaw clenched, his silver eyes darkening like storm clouds. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a rumble that vibrated through her bones. "It means you're Ironclaw now. My pack shares burdens and strengths. An Omega like you with cubs of rare blood, you balance us, heal the fractures from old wars." He paused, inhaling her scent subtly, jasmine and resolve mingling with the faint trace of her blood. "But it's more. I sense it in you, fire under that fear. And those young, they're not cursed. They're hope." Harlan cleared his throat from afar, breaking the tension. "King's got a soft spot for strays, lass. Lost his own litter young. Makes him fierce." Thorn shot the storyteller a warning look, but Harlan just grinned, unrepentant, as he scooped up the twins for a walk to the stream. Left alone, Ilara stood, the water skin forgotten in her hand. Thorn's proximity was overwhelming, his alpha aura wrapping around her like warm chains, stirring instincts she'd long suppressed. "Hope or not, I won't be a prize," she said softly, defiance sparking. "I've run too far to kneel now." He chuckled, low and genuine, the sound sending a shiver down her spine. "No kneeling required, but trust, that's the price." Before she could retort, a horn blared from the eastern watch, scouts signaling movement in the ridges. Thorn's demeanor shifted instantly, the king resurfacing. "Garrick, Lena, with me!" He turned to Ilara, his hand grazing her uninjured arm, a touch that lingered, promising protection and peril. "Stay in the healer's tent. Harlan will guard you." Then he was gone, striding into the fray with his warriors, leaving her with the echo of his scent and the growing dread in her gut. As the afternoon wore on, Ilara paced the healer's domain, a cozy longhouse filled with the sharp tang of herbs and salves. The healer, Iloan, she'd learned, with a dry wit and a limp from an old arrow wound, busied herself grinding roots, occasionally tossing Ilara questions about her journey. "Whispering woods, eh? Soft lands, softer alphas. No wonder you fled." The twins napped on a pallet, exhausted but safe, their breaths sinking in peaceful rhythm. But Ilara couldn't rest. Every distant shout twisted her nerves, visions of Kale's scarred face haunting her. Lena slipped in later, dirt-streaked and triumphant, carrying fresh bandages. "False alarm! Just a rock slide spooked the patrols. But Thorn's doubling the watches. Your scent's drawing eyes, Ilara, not just from outside." Her tone was conspiratorial, eyes twinkling. "The betas talk. Garrick says you're steel wrapped in silk. Even the young alphas are curious. Thorn shut down a few already." Ilara's cheeks warmed, a mix of flattery and fear. "Curious how? I won't trade one cage for another." Lena shrugged, helping rewrap the bandage. Here, it's different, shared, not stolen. But Thorn, he's the anchor, lost his mate to rogues like Kale's kind, makes him claim what's his, fiercely. Dusk fell with a vengeance, the mountains swallowing the light as fires reignited across the camp. Thorn returned as stars pricked the sky, his tunic torn but spirit unbroken. He found Ilara outside the longhouse, the twins asleep inside under Eloin's care. "Clear for now," he said, sinking onto the log beside her. The proximity was intimate, unintended perhaps, but his heat chased away the evening chill. "Eat with me. Strength for what's coming." They shared a simple meal, roast hare and roots, in companionable silence at first, the crackle of the fire their only companion. But questions bubbled up, Ilara's voice tentative. "Why me? An exiled Omega with baggage. I'm no queen." Thorn's silver eyes met hers over the flames, intense and unblinking. "Because you fought today. Not for glory, but for them. That's queen enough." His hand covered hers briefly, rough palm against soft skin, sending a jolt through her core. The touch lingered, unspoken promises hanging in the air. Yet as the night deepened, a low growl echoed from the tree line, a scout's warning. Thorn tensed, rising like a sentinel. Ilara's heart stuttered. The shadows seemed to shift, whispering of pursuits unrelenting. Kale's vow echoed in her mind, and in Thorn's protective stance, she saw not just a king, but a storm ready to break. For her, for the cubs, for a future tangled in fur and fate. But how long could iron hold against the wood's creeping grasp? The fire's embers glowed like watchful eyes as Thorn's hand withdrew from Ilara's, the warmth of his touch lingering like a brand on her skin. She pulled back slightly, her heart a wild drumbeat in the quiet night, the growl from the tree line fading into an uneasy hush. The mountains loomed silent now, but the air hummed with unspoken threats, the scent of pine and distant rain carrying whispers of pursuit. Thorn's silver eyes scanned the darkness, his body coiled like a spring, every muscle etched with the readiness of a king who'd clawed his throne from bloodied earth. "Stay close," he murmured, voice a low rumble that sent shivers racing down her spine. Not a command, but something deeper, an invitation laced with protection. Ilara nodded, rising to follow him as he strode toward the sound's origin, his warriors materializing from the shadows like ghosts. Garrick was first, axe in hand, his perpetual scowl deepened by fatigue. "Just a lone scout, my king, rogue straggler sniffing too close. Lena's on it." Sure enough, the scout's lithe form emerged from the trees, dragging a bound figure, a scrawny beta with matted fur and eyes darting like a cornered fox. His name, they learned later, was Wren, a deserter from Kale's band, reeking of fear sweat and betrayal. Thorn loomed over him, his presence alone enough to make Wren whimper. "Speak, cur. Why skulk at my borders?" The beta's gaze flicked to Ilara, widening in recognition before he spat out his tail in broken bursts. Kale's pack was regrouping in hidden caves along the ridge, nursing wounds but plotting deeper strikes. The Luna from Whispering Woods had sent emissaries, promising alliances to any who delivered the cursed cubs. Wren's voice cracked on the word, his eyes pleading. "They're saying the young ones see things, visions that could topple alphas. The Omega's milk binds 'em, makes 'em loyal. Kyle wants it all." Ilara's stomach twisted, the fire's heat suddenly stifling. Visions? She dismissed the old wives' tales, the whispers that Lear and Mira's golden eyes held echoes of forgotten seers. But now, with the pack's hungry stares turning her way, it felt like a noose tightening. Thorn silenced Wren with a glare, then nodded to Garrick. "Lock him in the pits. We'll question him at dawn." As the beta was hauled away, Thorn turned to Ilara, his expression unreadable in the firelight. "This changes nothing. You're under my roof, my protection." She searched his face, the lines of old grief etched there. Harlan's words about his lost litter echoing in her mind. "And if they come with more than rogues, armies, what then, Thorn? Do I become bait for your wars?" Her voice trembled, not with fear alone, but with the raw ache of a mother who'd lost everything once. The twins slept soundly inside, oblivious, but every shadow seemed to claw at her resolve. He stepped closer, the space between them charged, his earthy scent wrapping around her like a cloak. "No bait. You're the heart of it now. Ironclaw's been fractured since my mate fell. Rogues picked at the edges. Betas questioned my lead. But you, your strength, those cubs' light, it mends." His hand lifted, hesitating before cupping her cheek, thumb brushing away a stray tear she hadn't realized had fallen. The touch was electric, Omega instincts flaring to life, urging her to lean in, to yield. But Ilara held back, her golden eyes meeting his silver ones with a spark of defiance. "Mend or claim, I won't be shared like a trophy." Thorn's chuckle was soft, almost tender, but his gaze burned. "Shared means family here, Ilara, not chains. Prove me wrong if you can." He released her, the absence of his warmth a chill that seeped into her bones and vanished into the night to bolster the patrols, leaving her with the fire's dying glow and a whirlwind of emotions. Dawn broke grey and heavy, the camp stirring with purposeful energy. Ilara woke to the twins' laughter. Harlan had returned, his crooked grin brighter than the weak sun, as he taught them to mimic wolf howls with hollow reeds. Lear's attempts were shy, a soft puff that made Ilara smile despite the knot in her chest, while Mira's bold yips drew chuckles from passing betas. The old storyteller winked at her. "See, even kings started as cubs. Yours have spirit," Thorn notices. The day unfolded in a blur of integration, the pack's curiosity shifting from suspicion to tentative warmth. Elawan, the healer, summoned Ilara to the longhouse for a deeper check, her dry wit cutting through the tension. "Arms healing clean, but your sense shifting, stress or something sweeter." The woman arched a brow, her silver-streaked hair catching the light as she applied a poultice of mountain herbs, the sharp aroma grounding Ilara. "Heats don't lie, girl. Thorn's no pup. He'll scent it miles off." Ilara flushed, waving it away, but the words planted seeds of doubt. Her body, long suppressed by Exile's hardships, stirred now in this den of alphas, the air thick with potential. Midday brought a council in the pavilion, Thorn presiding with Garrick at his right and Lena scouting reports from the left. Ilara was called in, the twins trailing with Harlan, their small hands sticky from berry-stained fingers. The room hummed with low voices, advisors like grizzled Torrin, a one-eyed veteran with a booming laugh that hid sharp cunning, and young Beta Aria, lithe and quick, who eyed the cubs with open fascination. "The deserter spilled more," Thorn said, his throne a looming presence. "Kales are lying with fringe packs. They strike in 3 nights. Full moon to mask their numbers." Murmurs rose, but Thorn's gaze fixed on Ilara. "Your knowledge could turn it. The wood's weaknesses, their borders, their fears." She hesitated, the twins peeking from behind her skirts, Mira clutching a carved wolf toy. Lear's eyes, those golden depths, seemed to shimmer unnaturally for a moment, as if catching a glimpse of something beyond. Ilara swallowed, the weight of Wren's words pressing. "Their eastern pass is narrow, easy to ambush, but the Luna, she twists minds with whispers, and the cubs, they fear omens, think my young will unravel her hold." Torrin's laugh rumbled. "Then let's unravel 'em first. With respect, King, this Omega's got fire." Arya nodded, leaning in. "And the little ones. Let 'em play near the Seer's stone tomorrow. Might stir their gifts." Thorn's expression tightened, protective, but he inclined his head. "As she wills." As the meeting broke, Thorn pulled Ilara aside, the pavilion's shadows cloaking them. "You're weaving into us, Ilara. Feel it?" His voice was intimate, hand brushing hers again, igniting that forbidden spark. She wanted to pull away, to run, but the twins' giggles anchored her, and in his eyes she saw not just claim, but a loneliness mirroring her own. "Maybe," she whispered, heart aching, "but if we fight together, it's as equals." He nodded, the vow sealing something fragile between them. Yet as they emerged into the afternoon light, a scout's urgent call shattered the moment. Smoke on the southern ridge, rogue signals mocking their plans. Thorn's face hardened, the king reclaiming his storm. Ilara clutched the twins close, the mountain's whispers turning to roars in her ears. The full moon loomed, promising blood and bonds, but in the cub's innocent eyes she glimpsed a power that could save them all, or doom the packs to endless war. How deep would she dive into Ironclaw's heart before the woods dragged her under? The acrid scent of smoke twisted through the afternoon air like a serpent, coiling around the Ironclaw encampment and tightening the knot of dread in Ilara's chest. She held Lear and Mira closer, their small forms warm against her, as the scout's horn blared again, sharp and insistent. Thorn's silver eyes flashed with the cold fire of battle, his body pivoting toward the southern ridge, where thin plumes rose against the jagged peaks. Garrick was already barking orders, his scarred arms gesturing to warriors who shifted seamlessly into wolves, their howls a symphony of defiance. Lena sprinted past, bow slung over her shoulder, her feather braids whipping like flags in the wind. "False flag or probe, either way they're testing us," she called, vanishing into the tree line with a pack of scouts. Ilara's mind raced, the twins' golden eyes mirroring her fear as they peered up at her. Lear's lower lip trembled, his tiny hand fisting in her cloak. "Bad smoke, Mama, like the fire monsters?" Mira, ever the spark, tilted her head, sniffing the air. "Smells like the mean wolves from before." Ilara knelt, forcing a steady voice despite the tremor in her limbs. "Just shadows playing tricks, my loves. The big wolves will chase it away." But inside, doubt gnawed. Kyle's signals mocking their vigilance, a prelude to the full moon's fury. How many more warnings before the woods unleashed their full wrath? Thorn turned back to her, his presence a wall against the chaos, hand clamping gently on her shoulder. The touch grounded her, alpha strength seeping through like a balm, but it also stirred that unwelcome heat low in her belly, her omega nature responding to his nearness even now. "Elowen will keep you safe in the longhouse. No arguments." His voice was gravel wrapped in silk, brooking no refusal, yet his thumb brushed her collarbone, a fleeting caress that spoke of more than command. Ilara met his gaze, defiance flickering. "I'm no fragile flower, Thorn. If it's my past hunting us, let me help scout the lies." He studied her, the storm in his eyes softening just a fraction. "Not yet. Prove your trust first. Stay and live to fight beside me." With that, he shifted, his massive black wolf form bounding away, leading the charge into the haze. Harlan appeared at her side, cane tapping urgently, his crooked grin strained but present. "Come on, lass. No time for heroics with wee ones in tow." He herded them toward the healer's longhouse, the structure's thatched roof, a beacon amid the rising clamor. Inside, the air was thick with the earthy bite of drying herbs and simmering poultices. Elowen's domain, a sanctuary of sorts. The healer glanced up from her mortar, her silver-streaked bun askew, eyes sharp as she assessed Ilara's tense frame. "Smokes are faint. Mark my words. Sit. Teal steady those nerves. Chamomile and willow bark eases the fire in the blood." She poured from a steaming pot, her limp evident as she moved, a remnant of some long-ago raid that Harlan later whispered about in hushed tones. Elowen, once a fierce scout, brought low by a traitor's arrow but unbowed. Ilara settled the twins on a fur pallet, their curiosity piqued by the shelves of jars glowing with odd lights, dried fireflies for night vision salves, or so Elowin claimed with a wink. Lear poked at a bundle of feathers, his shyness melting into wonder, while Mira demanded stories of smoke monsters. Harlan obliged, spinning a yarn of ancient spirits who breathed fog to hide treasures, his gravelly voice weaving magic that drew soft laughs from the children. But Ilara paced, ears straining for news, the bond she'd felt with Thorn tugging like an invisible thread. What if this was the unravelling? Her old pack's whispers had always painted the cubs as harbingers, eyes that saw fates, milk that bound loyalties. Wren's confession echoed, visions to topple alphas. Had she brought doom to Ironclaw's door? Hours blurred as patrols returned, the smoke revealed as a controlled burn, rogues torching dry brush to sow panic, no real advance. Thorn re-entered the longhouse at dusk, his wolf form reverting in the doorway, tunic sweat-damp and dirt-streaked. His silver eyes found Ilara immediately, relief flickering before the king's mask slipped back. Feint confirmed. They're close, but not bold enough yet. He accepted a cloth from Elowin to wipe his face, the healer muttering about reckless kings and their wounds. Garrick followed, slinging his axe onto a hook, his scowl etched deeper. Lost 2 betas to hidden pits, spiked with silver, Kyle's playing dirty. Lena trailed in last, feathers askew, reporting ridge movements that hinted at larger forces massing. The group gathered around the central table, maps unrolled under lantern light, the air humming with strategy. Thorn traced lines with a calloused finger, his proximity to Ilara deliberate, shoulder-brushing hers. Eastern Pass, as you said, ambush there, but we draw them in, use the cubs a curse against them. All eyes turned to her, and Ilara's pulse spiked. How? They're children, not weapons. Thorn's gaze softened, hand covering hers under the table, a secret anchor. Not as weapons, as bait for their superstition. Let the Luna's fear blind her. Harlan nodded sagely, while Arya, the young beta from Council, leaned in with eager eyes. And if the little one's gifts stir, my Gran swore seer blood shows in dreams might warn us. Ilara glanced at the twins, now dozing in a corner, Lear's brow furrowed as if chasing shadows in sleep. Mira murmured something incoherent, her tiny hand twitching. A chill ran through Ilara. Last night she dreamed of golden threads weaving packs together, snapping under strain. Was it theirs? If it comes to that, promise me choices, Thorn. No forcing their paths. He squeezed her hand, the gesture intimate amid the war talk, his voice low for her ears alone. Choices for all of us, Ilara, including this. The unspoken hung heavy. What grew between them, Alpha and Omega, king and exile, a bond that could heal or consume. As the meeting dissolved, warriors dispersing to sharpen claws and spirits, Thorn lingered, helping Elowin clear the maps. Garrick clapped Ilara's back, rare gentleness in his gruff nod. Your Ironclaw now through and through. Lena flashed a grin, slipping Mira a lucky stone before departing. Alone with the healer and Harlan, Ilara felt the pull of the pack, a living web drawing her in. But outside, the full moon's approach painted the sky in silver promise, and in the twins' restless sleep she heard faint whispers, visions of clashing fangs, a king's roar, and her own heart torn between flight and fire. Night deepened, the encampment's fires a constellation against the dark. Ilara lay beside the cubs, Thorn's scent still on her skin, a talisman against the encroaching storm. Yet sleep evaded her, the mountain's winds carrying Kale's distant howl, a vow unbroken. How far would she go to protect her own, when the line between sanctuary and surrender blurred like smoke in the wind? The answer stirred in her veins, fierce and unyielding, as dawn's first light crept in, heralding the eve of blood. The moon hung low over the Silverfang Mountains, a bloated silver orb casting ethereal light across the Iron Claw encampment, turning the tents and longhouses into silhouettes of watchful beasts. Ilara stirred restlessly on the fur pallet in Eloan's longhouse, the twins' soft breaths a fragile anchor in the thickening night. Lear murmured in his sleep, golden eyes fluttering beneath closed lids, while Mira clutched her lucky stone like a talisman. The air was heavy with the scent of smouldering herbs and distant pine, but beneath it lurked something sharper, anticipation laced with the metallic tang of impending rain. Ilara's skin prickled, her omega senses heightened by the lunar pull, stirring instincts she'd buried deep during her exile. The full moon was upon them, and with it, Kyle's promised storm. She slipped from the pallet, careful not to wake the cubs, and stepped outside into the chill. The camp thrummed with subdued energy, warriors sharpening claws by firelight, betas murmuring strategies in tight clusters. Garrick stood sentinel near the eastern watch, his broad frame a bulwark against the shadows, axe propped against his shoulder like an old friend. His scowl softened when he spotted her, nodding gruffly. "Can't sleep, eh? Moon's got everyone on edge. Thorns in the pavilion, plotting the trap." Ilara wrapped her arms around herself, the wool cloak doing little to ward off the inner chill. The cubs, Lear's dreaming again. Whispers of fangs and fire. What if Wren was right? Their eyes seeing too much. Garrick shifted, his scarred arms flexing uncomfortably. "Seer blood or not, they're Iron Claw now. We protect our own." His voice held a rare warmth, the steady beta's loyalty shining through his rough exterior. But before she could press, a low howl rose from the ridges, Lena's signal, sharp and urgent. Ilara's heart lurched as figures emerged from the tree line. Thorn, flanked by Torrin, the one-eyed veteran, whose booming laugh had turned to a predatory growl, and young Arya, her lithe form taut with readiness. Thorn's silver eyes locked on Ilara across the distance, a silent command to stay put, but she felt the pull, magnetic and undeniable. The pavilion loomed ahead, its hides billowing like lungs in the wind. Inside, the central fire crackled fiercely, illuminating maps scarred with claw marks and the tense faces of the council. Thorn paced like a caged wolf, his black hair unbound and wild, tunic unlaced to reveal the corded muscles of his chest, marked by old scars from battles long won. "They'll come through the eastern pass at midnight, Kale leading, the Luna's whispers fueling their frenzy," he said, voice a deep timbre that vibrated through the room. Torrin grunted agreement, pounding a fist on the table, his single eye gleaming with cunning. "Ambush 'em narrow, archers high, wolves low, but the Omega's intel seals it." Arya nodded eagerly, her quick fingers tracing the pass on the map. "And if the cubs stir visions, we use them to predict strikes." Ilara entered unbidden, the flap whispering shut behind her. All eyes turned, Thorn's gaze igniting that familiar spark, possessive, yet laced with a vulnerability he rarely showed. "Ilara!" he rumbled, crossing to her in 2 strides, his hand finding her waist instinctively, drawing her into the circle of his heat. The touch sent a jolt through her, Omega fire blooming low despite the fear. "You should be with the young." She shook her head, golden eyes fierce. "They're safe with Eloan and Harlan, but this is my fight too. Kyle wants the cubs for their power. Let me draw him out, face to face." Murmurs rippled. Torrin chuckled approvingly, but Arya's brow furrowed with concern. "Brave, but risky. The Luna's pack fights dirty, poisons, illusions." Thorn's grip tightened, not painful but anchoring, his breath warm against her ear. "No, you'll be the lure from safety, your scent on the wind pulling them in. I won't risk you." The words hung heavy, a vow wrapped in command, but Ilara saw the crack in his armor, the fear of loss mirroring her own. She leaned into him just enough to feel his heart thunder. "Then promise me this ends tonight. No more running, no more chains. His silver eyes searched hers, the firelight dancing in their depths. Ends with you as mine, ours. Family, Ilara, not prisoner. The intimacy of the moment stretched, the council fading as their bond thrummed, Alpha and Omega entwined in the moon's glow. Outside the night deepened, the first drops of rain pattering like impatient fingers. Harlan shuffled into the longhouse, his cane echoing softly as he checked on the twins. The old storyteller's grin was subdued, eyes twinkling with ancient knowledge. Moon's full, lass, stirs the old blood. My gran was a seer, dreams came clearest then. Watch the wee ones close. Ellawen nodded from her herb bench, her limp more pronounced in the dim light, hands steady as she packed healing kits. Feverfew for visions, if they wake screaming. And for you, something to cool that heat brewing. She slid a vial across, her dry wit masking genuine care, the healer's sharp eyes missing nothing. Ilara returned to the pallet, the twins stirring as thunder rumbled. Lear bolted upright, gasping, his small chest heaving. Mama, wolves, red eyes in the dark. They want us, Mira whimpered, clinging to him, her golden gaze unfocused, as if peering through veils. Ilara pulled them close, heart aching at their terror, but a strange clarity bloomed. Flashes in her mind, echoes of their dreams. Kale's scarred form lunging through mist, Thorn's black wolf countering, a silver thread binding them all. It's just a dream, my loves, she soothed, though doubt clawed at her. Were the cubs truly seers, their innocence a weapon the Luna coveted? The rain intensified, drumming on the roof like war drums, and Ilara's resolve hardened. If visions were their gift, she'd wield them for Ironclaw, for Thorn, whose touch lingered like a promise. Midnight approached, the camp a hive of shadowed movement. Garrick roused the outer guards, his gruff voice steadying nerves, while Lena vanished into the rain-slicked trees, her scout's instincts unerring. Thorn found Ilara at the longhouse door, rain glistening on his skin like liquid silver. "It's time," he said, pulling her into a fierce embrace, lips brushing her temple. The kiss was brief, electric, tasting of salt and storm. "Stay strong, for us." As he shifted and loped away, Ilara watched, the twins' hands in hers, the moon illuminating a path of peril. The eastern pass echoed with distant snarls, Kyle's forces cresting the ridge, drawn by her scent on the wind. Tension coiled like a spring, the battle's edge sharpening, and in that suspended breath, Ilara felt the fragile web of fate tremble. Victory or ruin hung on the morrow's light, but the bond forging between her and the pack burned brighter than any fear, pulling her inexorably forward into the fray. Rain lashed the eastern pass like the wrath of ancient spirits, turning the narrow trail into a slick ribbon of mud and stone that clung to paws and boots alike. The full moon pierced the storm clouds in fleeting glimpses, bathing the Silverfang Mountains in a ghostly silver that made every shadow a potential predator. Ilara stood at the edge of the ambush line, hidden among the jagged boulders with Harlan and Elowen, the twins bundled in her arms against the biting wind. Lear's small body shook, not just from cold, but from the visions that had plagued his dreams, flashes of red eyes and snapping jaws that now felt all too real. Mira, pressed close, whispered, "The big wolf will win, Mama. I saw it in the shiny water." Her golden eyes held a quiet certainty, a seer's spark that both terrified and empowered Ilara. From the ridge above, Thorn's black wolf form led the charge, his massive silhouette cutting through the downpour like a blade. Garrick flanked him on one side, his partial shift lending him hulking strength, axe traded for claws that gleamed wetly. Lena darted ahead, a shadow in the rain, her arrows finding throats before the rogues could fully crest the pass. Torin and Arya held the high ground, the veterans' booming commands drowned by thunder, while the young Beta's quick strikes felled scouts with lethal precision. The Ironclaw pack howled in unison, a thunderous chorus that echoed off the peaks, shaking loose pebbles and resolve from their foes. Chaol's forces poured in like a flood, ragged wolves and half-shifted Betas, their pelts matted with mud and fury, driven by the Luna's poisoned promises. Chaol himself led, his scarred muzzle twisted in a snarl, eyes burning crimson under the moon's gaze. "The Omega and her cursed whelps," he bellowed, voice warping through fangs. "Deliver them, Thorn, or watch your realm bleed." His pack answered with rabid howls, but the narrow pass funneled them into a kill zone, Ironclaw's trap snapping shut like iron jaws. The clash erupted in a frenzy of fur and fang, rain mingling with blood to paint the earth crimson. Thorn collided with Chaol mid-leap, their bodies a whirlwind of power, black against scarred grey, alpha against beta pretender. Thorn's jaws clamped on Chaol's shoulder, tearing flesh with a savage twist that drew a pained yelp. But Chaol countered with a rake of claws across Thorn's flank, drawing shallow gashes that welled hot and immediate. Garrick barreled into the fray beside them, his roar splitting the storm as he downed two rogues with brutal efficiency, his scarred arms now paws that crushed bone. Lena's arrows whistled like vengeful spirits, piercing eyes and hearts, while Torin's laughter boomed even in wolf form, a mad counterpoint to the chaos as he guarded the flank. Ilara's breath caught, her Omega instincts urging her to join, to protect what was hers. But Harlan's firm hand on her shoulder held her back. "Watch, lass, the king's fire matches yours." Eowyn nodded, her silver-streaked hair plastered to her face, vial of feverfew clutched ready for the aftermath. Below, the battle raged, rogues slipping through only to meet Arya's swift blade or the coordinated strikes of Ironclaw Betas. But Chaol pressed Thorn relentlessly, his desperation fueled by the Luna's whispers, aiming to break through to the camp where the cubs waited. Then a shift, a ripple in the air, like the moon's light bending. Lear gasped in Ilara's arms, his eyes snapping open wide, golden depths glowing faintly. "The thread! Snapping!" he cried, voice piercing the din. Mira echoed him, pointing into the storm. "There! The weak one!" In that instant, clarity struck Ilara. Their visions, not curses, but gifts. She scented it too. Kyle's left flank weakening, a rogue enforcer faltering under arrow fire. "Now!" she shouted to the ridge, her voice carrying on the wind like a siren's call. Thorn heard, his silver eyes flashing as he disengaged Kyle with a powerful shove, lunging toward the breach. Garrick followed, tearing into the exposed line, while Lena loosed a volley that scattered the remnants. Chaol howled in rage, charging anew, but Thorn met him head-on, pinning him against a boulder with unyielding force. "She's Ironclaw," Thorn growled, shifting back just enough to speak, his human form towering and bloodied. "The cubs, too. Your Luna's lies end here." With a final decisive bite, he severed Chaol's claim. The Beta crumpling, defeated, his pack breaking around him as survivors fled into the storm-swept night. The rain eased as the last rogue vanished, the pass a tableau of muddied victory, bodies strewn, but Ironclaw losses few, their unity forged stronger in the fire. Thorn shifted fully human, striding up the slope through the thinning downpour, his tunic torn and wounds knitting slowly under the moon's healing gaze. Garrick clapped his back, grinning through blooded teeth, while Lena and Arya shared weary high-fives, feathers and blades alike slick with rain. Torin boomed a triumphant laugh, already calling for the healers. Ilara rushed forward, twins in tow, Harlan and Eowyn trailing. Lear and Mira broke free, toddling to Thorn with unbridled joy, Mira hugging his leg, Lear gazing up with awe. "You chased the red eyes," the boy exclaimed, and Thorn knelt, scooping them into his arms despite the sting of his wounds. "With help from brave seers," he rumbled, silver eyes meeting Ilara's over their heads. She reached him, hands trembling as she touched his face, tracing a cut on his cheek. The spark between them ignited fully now, no longer shadowed by doubt, Alpha and Omega, bound in battle's forge. "You belong to us," Thorn whispered, echoing his first decree, but now it rang with tenderness, not threat. "All of us, pack, family." Ilara's heart swelled, tears mingling with rain on her cheeks. "And we choose it," she replied, leaning in as their lips met, soft and claiming under the moon's watchful eye. The kiss deepened the bond, a mate's promise, unspoken yet sealed, her Omega heat blooming in response to his strength. The pack gathered, cheers rising like a new dawn, Garrick's gruff nod of approval, Lena's whoop, Elauen's knowing smile, Harlan's tales already spinning of the Nightseers and Kings united. Torin hoisted a torch, illuminating faces alight with hope, while Arya scooped up Mira for a victory dance. The mountains, once Exile's cruel barrier, now cradled their home, the Silverfang winds carrying away the last echoes of pursuit. As the storm cleared, stars emerging like blessings, Ilara walked hand in hand with Thorn, the twins between them, toward the encampment's welcoming fires. Sanctuary had transformed, no longer a cage, but a hearth where lost cubs found their pride, an exiled Omega her throne, and a king his heart. In the Ironclaw realm they belonged, woven into the fur and fire of a pack unbreakable, their future a howl against the endless night.